Welcome back everybody, Gentle Dorks, and today I'm going to do my favourite superhero movies per decade. How far back am I going to start? I'm going to start back in the 40s and 50s with the Superman serials, or should I go back further and go with the Flash Gordon serials? No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the 60s, which is when they did the first Batman in 1966 with Adam West. Now, that is my favourite superhero movie from that decade. What else can you say? The whole of that series was camp, fun, colourful, and just so cheesy. It was amazing. And from then on in, that is where my love of superheroes came from. And that is why Batman 1966 with Adam West is my 60s pick. So we'll move on to the 1970s, and people are going to think that this is a DC fest because my next pick from the 70s is Superman. I mean, that was essentially the first big budget superhero movie, and it paved the way for all the other movies that we see right now. If it wasn't for that Superman movie, we wouldn't have had any other superhero movies for a long time. It's one of, if not my favourite superhero movie of all time. So where do we go in the 80s? No, there was very few superhero movies in the 80s. I mean, we had a Punisher movie in the 80s with Dolph Lundgren, really good. I enjoyed it. But again, I'm going to have to go with Batman. Tim Burton's 1989 Batman was phenomenal. It completely changed how people saw superhero movies, and it was fantastically done. And the fact that they got a comedic actor in to play Batman, I think, is what made it, because people were like, oh, how's he going to be Batman? How can he play the Dark Knight fantastically? Is what the answer was to that. And I will go to my grave knowing that Michael Keaton is one of the greatest people ever to play Batman, next to Kevin Conroy. From there on in, we move to the 90s, and for this one, I'm going to have to go with Blade. It was, again, it reinvented how superhero movies work, and it also saved Marvel from going bankrupt. Because if this movie hadn't made any money, if it wasn't a success, they were going to have to sell. And they were already in talks with DC, who were willing to buy them and take all their characters and create a massive Marvel and DC universe. And part of me wishes that Blade had failed and we could have seen that in the comics and possibly movies. But we got what we got, and I'm glad, because then we got Blade 2, and then we got Blade Trinity, which a lot of people badmouth, and I can understand why they don't like it, but personally I enjoyed it. Then we get to the 2000s, and this is really where we start to see a lot more superhero movies coming out. From the 2000s, I have picked Watchmen because it was just so different from all the other superhero movies. It didn't try and paint the heroes in a good light. It showed their darker sides. It was essentially the opening of all these other comics that show the dark side of the heroes, like the boys. If it wasn't for Watchmen, we probably wouldn't have the boys. So I'm thankful for that, and that's why I've picked Watchmen as my 2000s pick. From there, we move on to the 2010s, which was marred with superhero movies. And after the MCU started, it was like an unstoppable force. The movie I've picked is Endgame because it completely summed up everything that had happened in the MCU up until that point. All the stories were done. And that was the culmination of everything. And a lot of people said that they should have maybe stopped there and restarted everything, start a new universe, maybe go through the Ultimate Universe and do movies from that so we could have similar characters, if not the same characters, with a different actor. And I can see where they were coming from with that, but I've enjoyed the continuation. I got a bit burnt out, just like everyone else has, and it's completely understandable, especially from 2021 onwards, when the restrictions for COVID stopped and they could start making movies and shows again, and we got completely bombarded because they didn't know if we were going to go into another lockdown, so they just kept making these things and pouring them out. And the quality was lost a bit on some of the stuff. I completely accept that. But then we get to the 2020s. The movie I have picked is Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I mean, I could have picked The Batman because it was fantastic, but I just think that the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was a more rounded story, and the emotion in that movie as well. It didn't feel like a superhero movie. It felt more like something else, and that's why I have picked that. Now this list could change, especially with Deadpool and Wolverine being released, and that could possibly be my favourite of the 2020s. But at the time of this recording, Deadpool and Wolverine isn't out yet. It's not going to be out for another 2 weeks, I think. Two? Yeah, 2 weeks. At the time of this recording. By the time I put this out, it'll have probably been out for 2 weeks. And I probably still haven't seen it, so don't spoil it for me. But that's my picks for my favourite superhero movies throughout the decades. Let me know if any of these are your favourites. And if not, why not? They should be. I'm only joking. Enjoy what you want. On that note, I shall love yous and leave yous. And as always, see ya.